So this is not like a scientific talk where research what's kind of the theory and like how do other countries do it and how do big corporates do it and how do, I don't know, people do it. This is about my experience, what I've been doing, so lots of subjectivity. I think we're going to go with English, right? First of all? Yes. Presentation open source are all my presentations, so you don't need to take any notes. Here we go. That's me, 31 years old, and I've got a daughter who's turning 2, and basically on the day she was born, our old CTO resigned, and I stepped in, so that's easy to remember. I put the other facts in there because we're in Berlin, and basically there's no grandparents that can take care of our children all day long. That would be very handy, but we'll have to manage without. Wife is also working, so you could assume that we could be a pretty standard startup family. Yes. I work at Sensorberg. Sensorberg is 3.5 years old. We have lots of engineers, and we actually have quite a bunch of fathers and even a single dad and part-time project managers now. So we actually kind of turned out that way, that we found that this is actually an advantage and also happens on its own. I mean, probably 5 years ago, if you search for software engineers, they're all 25 years old and super hip and out of university, but these people also grow up and their lives continue, and they're also happy to be appreciated with the new circumstances of their life. So, and the last two points are really important. We're a small team, we have a complex technology stack. So we can't afford to have another tech team every 2 years. So we really need a solid base, and I think it helps if you can really have combine startup life with family life and without getting too much overboard in one or the other direction. So it's working out quite nice for us, and I'm taking it to the next level personally. That's what I'm going to talk about. Why do I think it's important? It's funny because everybody I talk to, they're all like, oh my god, it's so amazing, you do this, I'm so jealous. But I think very few people actually try to really go that direction and think about it. But I've met no one who, in my circles, who ever told me that this is a bad idea. Actually, including our CEO, who's like, oh yeah, good idea, let's do this. So. You can really it's really an option, and that's one of the things I'd like to shake people up maybe a bit to think about. There's hard hours, and you can work 60 hours a week, but you can also grow up and kind of find a better balance. You have to fight or ask for it, of course, but again, sometimes you don't even have to fight. Sometimes it's enough to ask. And I would even say it has advantages for all involved parties if you manage it right. And also, of course, I think it's more common among women in the industry or in general. So guys have a lot to learn in this regard, and that's where I also hope to shine a bit. If you think about it, working in a startup has its own challenges. There's tighter deadlines, there's lots of company survives or not deadlines, or super important customer, if we don't deliver this, then it's going to be big trouble. So there's different kind of deadlines. It's different than working at Siemens, where you're part of a big ship and where they have corporate part-time regulations, and you can go and choose from 15 forms and stuff like that. So that's not happening in a startup. There is investors, and they maybe should also think about their attitude, but they probably expect everyone to work 80 hours, and like they're only really interested in getting their money back. But that's something like if you can get arguments, I'm trying to find some, that you should, like, you can work with them, and I guess you can pay them and working less and also costing less. There's also lots of challenges and recruiting. As a startup, by definition, you start with no one, so you have to find people, and if you can use like a friendliness as a competitive advantage, of course, that might help. You can talk to other people and recruit other people that probably wouldn't like talk to you in the first place. If you have a good story, and if you really live this idea, then this could really work. So what do I have? I have a 80% contract, and we set it up to be 6 months limited for now and no auto renewal. So if nothing happens, I'll be full-time in July. So that's, again, one of the first things that you can do to kind of, you can kind of approach someone and kind of treat it as a trial. If nothing happens, it's going back to normal. Also, maybe you have you don't have too much stress and kind of know what's happening, so everybody can be sure after half a year it could be back to normal. So that's a good entry to kind of get the discussion going. So how do I do it? I try to kind of summarize the principles that me, as someone who's got all the tech team being responsible for, has a whole team, how do I sum it up? What do I try to do to make this work? Because it is still a learning curve for everyone. And that's one of the things I try to sum up is, like, even if I'm not there, I'm still responsible. That doesn't change. And this probably goes for all kinds of positions. So if you're a project manager, even though you're not there, in a startup, you're kind of always responsible. So it's not really good attitude if you tell your boss, don't even, if the house is burning, don't even call me on Fridays. That's probably a bad idea. Then go to Siemens. That's where you can have this attitude, or work in the public sector. So this kind of comes from this, like the space. So I have Fridays off, so I do a 4-day week. But I tell people, and that's kind of what I tell them, I'd rather be called on a Friday than always clean up the mess on Mondays. And of course, I'll try with my team, and hopefully the team tries with me, not to create a mess every Friday. But again, that's basically my one sentence to tell people, you've got my number, call me. I'm still the CTO on a Friday. It doesn't mean I don't exist anymore. Monday to Thursday, everything's regular. That means I'll do my hours. I'll probably stay longer. We don't count hours, but it's more or less the regular working hours. If it's a little more stuff to do, I'm staying longer. I'm kind of treating this like basically it's just Friday cutoff. Everything else remains the same. Then of course, that's something I realized kind of preparing for this talk. I actually have a bonus except probably most of the people in the room, they don't have a buffer. So I have 1 day of buffer if there's crunch time, if there's like really stuff going on, projects getting to the end. I actually have a day that I could voluntarily offer to work, which most people, they would have to really sacrifice a Saturday and Sunday, which is something else to ask. Which I find, I don't have a problem with this. It kind of comes with the responsibility. I'll probably take a day off one other day, but I have this buffer. And that, I think, is really, if both parties agree on it, that could really make a difference. Imagine you have a team that could work 20% more if it really needs to, without spending weekends and worrying about all the HR issues of working on the weekend and stuff like that. I don't believe in overtime. As I said before, we have a complex product, lots of technologies involved. Even if I stay for 10 hours, after those 10 hours, my brain is mushy and that's not really useful anymore. So there is a natural limit of me being in the office. But I think that kind of comes with the job and should be pretty normal. And then I have 1 day a week where I come in early and pick up my daughters, or even find another day of a little more work-life balance. One other thing, I don't do home office really. I'm not a home office person. I like to go to the office. And that could be an argument. You know, it's probably harder to argue if you have like home office agreements, and if you're only going to work for 1 day less and then stay another day in the home office, it kind of like it's going to be a little weird if you're only basically being in the office for 3 days. But me personally, I like to be in the office. I need to interact with the people, and it's always harder to do this with Hangouts and Skype and whatnot. So that's kind of my deal, and it could help if you kind of set it straight from the very beginning that you kind of like home office is not part of the deal, and you can negotiate it separately. All right. Why do I do it? It's the famous work-life balance. I love my job, I really do. But I put it this way, I also love other things. So, I'm not the guy who would spend 7 days a week working. That's both my brain capabilities wouldn't handle it. Plus, there's other things in my life, and I don't think that's really bad. And that's nothing to like be ashamed of, and you can really fight for it or ask for it. Then I had this feeling, like talking about outside reception, like how do people react to me being a part-time CTO? I said part of it, like friends and family, they're all like super excited and they're all jealous and whatnot. But then sometimes, and it's probably me as well, but I feel like people still think it's something special when it shouldn't be. Like people wish me a nice weekend on a Thursday. But I'm saying, it's not my weekend, it's Friday. I just have Friday off. It's weekend is Saturday, Sunday. That's kind of separate these two things. I'm not something special, like I'm also getting paid less, so it's not really a Saturday, Sunday, so it's different. Cousin of my wife called it my alone day, spa day, whatever. But I'm not going to the spa every Friday. I'm not going, it's not happening. I've got other things to do. So that's basically why I'm doing it, because there's so much kind of to do that I want to have a little more time to get those things done. It's not because I'm going to be sleeping in super long and chilling. Yes, please.
How deep do you dive into the coding process? Do you write some code?
Not anymore. I kind of can do for most of the projects we do. I actually found out that me being needed for coding is counterproductive for my job. Mm-hmm. I'm needed in between the coders, but I think I have code written for all the repositories that we have in place. Mm-hmm. So. But I try not to, and also my engineers should try not to make me do it in their interest, because again, we're like 4 basically development teams, 2 people each. Mm-hmm. If I kind of poke around in all the teams, I'm only going to make them nervous and break things. So I try to avoid that. All right. So what I came up with, and kind of maybe when people are kind of wishing me a nice weekend or tell me that I should enjoy my spa day, they should imagine a freelance colleague who's not working for the company on Fridays. You're basically he's working for somebody else, and it's not worth mentioning probably, but that's kind of what I would expect, like of the attitude, where sometimes it isn't. And you don't really wish them a nice, happy Friday off when you know that they're basically working as well on Fridays. All right, let's talk about advantages. Of course, the obvious, I pay 20% less. I work 20% less, I get paid 20% less. I would argue that I'm not 20% less productive. Because like one thing I do On Fridays, it's like the best ideas you get under the shower. Imagine you have a day that you're not involved with family or work, you get good ideas. So that's always like a good time where you get good ideas. And again, I'm available. If I have a good idea or have some things going on, I'll write them down. So you're not really losing 20%. It's also like, company could argue that it's only for a certain time, so you don't have to get investors too nervous that everybody's going to work 50% and maybe 30% in the future. So you're still going to have a full staff. It's a competitive HR advantage, I would really say so. If you're recruiting somebody with family, they would probably consider, or even not even consider a startup because you're a startup and that can't work, right? And they're all going to go to Siemens and SAP and whatnot. But if you can really convince them that it can work, you would really have an advantage. And again, this crunch time buffer I came up with, if it's a common agreement, that could also make a difference. Basically, you're not losing productivity if shit hits the fan, so to say. My advantages, I don't burn out, so that's also something. We've met a couple of CTOs, and you meet some people, like especially early days of a startup, like they won't do a second job of that kind. They need like half a year of rest, and I guess for a company, it's better for the midterm if you can keep your employees healthy and if you can kind of find a balance or have a tool to bring some balance to it. So that kind of goes into both directions. Again, I have a day where I don't have to worry about work and I don't have to like take care of the family at the same time. So I have my head free for other things. There should be a bath on the right. I really like it. It's also giving me an HR advantage. It's giving sense of work an HR advantage because people probably don't want to leave. Like I'm not answering to recruiters, and I also have this crunch time buffer, which kind of goes with the responsibility. Again, I have this buffer. I don't mind using it if it doesn't take overhand. So I'm happy. If like yesterday, I worked basically all day. Actually drove with my daughter to Tegel to deliver some electronics to a partner, and that's okay. I mean, it's different kind of work, but it was necessary, and I did it. So I don't mind that too much. What do I do on my Friday? Of course, I have more of an afternoon to spend with family. I wanted to fix more things at home, but it's kind of hard to find that time. It's only been a couple of months. Like cleaning up the basement and the closet. And I once took a nap. That was on my birthday, which happened to be on a Friday, so that doesn't count. And there's like little chores that, like the digital photo family archive, which I wanted to basically get in shape. So that's the kind of work things I wanted to do on Fridays, and you can just see that how much is working out. So what do I really do? I work a little bit. I go exercise a bit. There happened to be a IoT brunch meetup on Fridays every 2 weeks, so I go there and get free breakfast. So that kind of counts as work, but it's also free breakfast. So I do a work-related meetup, and then there's other stuff, like we don't have a car, but I have to get the car fixed, and chores, wash the clothes, stuff like that. So I'm trying to bring across that it's really not like Nivea house all day, being in the sauna. All right, final thoughts. Again, my contracts are out renewing. I'll most likely prolong it. I really like the 80%. It's a good compromise. I prefer the 4 days 100% week rather than doing a 5-day 80% week, because if you only cut 20% of each day, that doesn't really give you a lot of relief. So the 1 day off really makes a difference. And if you kind of combine it with flexi leave, that can really work. And then again, I didn't want to talk about studies, but there is actually a movement, and there's a company called Tandemploy. If you think about it, I'm half of a work tandem. If there was another guy, also 80%, we would be a tandem, like 2 people working on the same job. That's also something that's going on in the industry. There's a whole platform for it, trying to match people, and it's both for companies that want to give their employees a tool to find each other or to find outside people, or for an employee to go there proactively and then maybe approach his or her employer to do a tandem. Of course, there's laws in Germany that if you have a child, you have the right to be part-time employed to a certain degree. And that could also be a good starting point to try this out. Again, this concept, I thought it's not really that new. You probably have part-time freelance people that only work 4 days a week because they can do it and they earn enough money. And it's not really special there, but they probably have the same responsibility. They are highly skilled, highly trained. So it's not really that new, and I hope that more people in the future maybe do it, and it becomes less of a thing to talk about. That's it. You can find the presentation there if you want to, and if you have any questions, we can do that now.